The Women in Mining initiative was conceptualized in 2019 and it was then formally launched in 2020. It is building on what is already there in companies. We always need to remember that companies have been having women in mining initiatives, but we felt that as the Minerals Council, we need to have a coordinated approach as an industry so that we learn from each other, because some companies might be far ahead, but others are lagging behind. But also then for us to be able to monitor what is happening overall in the industry. We recognized the fact that we were not moving as quickly or having as many women as we would like. We were still around 12 to 14% of employees were women in the industry, which is not a high figure at all, considering that women constitute more than 50% of the population. Of course, depending on the circumstances, you will not have 50% of women in all environments. But we believed that there was great room for us to improve.
Approach in terms of women in mining has been to work more on a strategic perspective to ensure that we integrate and align the women in mining leadership programs and processes to the normal business day-to-day issues of the strategy of the mining industry. And this is to make sure that the women in mining agenda is integrated and seen to be part of the whole organization rather than a parallel process. The fact that last year the Minerals Council of South Africa launched the Stop Gender Abuse campaign beginning of the year, in line with the other campaigns of significance that we have, like the safety campaign, Kumbulikaya, as well as the health TB prevention program, also indicated the importance of how the Minerals Council is taking this issue of women in mining. And that was one of the big progresses we made, the fact that this was now part of the main agenda. Secondly, we launched the very first Women in Mining National Day in August last year. And that was also important because in there, it was to make sure that we demonstrate to our members that the women in mining agenda is important. And thirdly, the fact that from a governance perspective, we have now said women in mining leadership platform that we have established, which I chair, is that process or platform that will be championed by the CEOs, also ensures that the CEOs of each of the mining companies also embrace this strategy and also are going to be driving it with their own excos within their own organizations. For me, those are the important activities and interventions to show and demonstrate how we take seriously this topic. In terms of the workplace strategies that we have shared with the industry, these are based on the 7 pillars that have been identified. And those identified 7 pillars ensure that we look at policies that we have as organizations to make sure that the policies that the organizations have actually support and embrace the attraction and retention of women within the industry. The second part of those strategies has been also to make sure that we look at how we align with the external best practices like the white papers and the recent one being the Convention 170, which ILO has set up, and South Africa is in the process of being a signatory towards, which focuses on the issue of workplace bullying, harassment, victimization, and also sexual harassment. And as an industry, we are also aligning to those best practices to make sure that in the workplace we start putting in place preventative measures that will support women in terms of the safety space that they require, not only safety from a physical perspective, but safety from a psychological perspective, so that they can be able to thrive and work to their full potential as they operate within the industry. The last part of the strategy is more around how we continue to communicate and give best practices and share best practices within the sector to make sure that for those companies that don't have policies or even training programs around sensitivity, unconscious bias training, and also culture change programs, we are able to support them to put those in place, because we want to make sure that the environment is going to be a nurturing environment for both women and men to be able to work together productively and to be able to thrive again to their fullest potential. The other areas, for example, that across the industry we are beginning to monitor and give best practices on is on the physical space, as I had mentioned, particularly when it comes to protective equipment that is required by women, as in overalls, for example, to make sure that the clothing and the shoes or the boots that women are using are able to be adaptable for women's purposes rather than only being for men. The whole physical infrastructure to make sure that the safety of the women, the ablution blocks are separated in such a way that there is privacy for women and men as they use them as part of their change room. So we are looking at different levels, really, at policy level, strategy level, and also physically, practically, what it is we can do to make sure that women in mining feel that the industry is embracing them and enabling them to be successful in their careers.
For all of these, we've got companies which are leading and plans that have been drawn up and approved by the Women in Mining Leadership Forum. A lot are still at a status sort of a situation analysis phase, because this will be the first year that they are being implemented. So, for instance, on gender-based violence, we'll be looking at what is there in place that companies have what is it that companies have put in place, and whether there are gaps and what those gaps are, so that they are able to fill them. The same with the physical environment and the PPE. We've sent a questionnaire to our members because we felt it's a fairly basic thing. We want to know from the start where companies are at in terms of the physical environment, and so that we are able then to see what the gap is and that companies are able to fill that gap. And for most of these, it's about saying, what is it that needs to be done? And we do a status quo now. Where are we at the beginning? Because we have got, for instance, an aim of having 30% of women in the industry by 2025. And so, and with the attendant changes, to the environment, which are assisted by these 7 foundational measures. So we institute them starting this year, and we then monitor if there is progress and whether particular companies, which are not maybe doing that well, it will be possible for us to point it out for them. But I think more importantly, companies in this process, they learn. They are already learning from each other. When they discuss some of these foundational measures, some of them are ahead of others, and therefore the other companies do learn already from them. So on the main, what we are doing this year is to implement, the action plan, which is on the implementation of these foundational measures. And as I said, they are in different phases. We also will be establishing a reporting system. We are commissioning a company that will come up with a reporting system that will cover a number of matrices, which we will then be able to monitor as an industry, and will make it easy for us to assess progress.
The Minerals Council of South Africa has been supportive and welcomes the President's call for industry to be part of the solution to the prevention of gender-based violence and combating the challenge that the country faces. Because again, we do know that most people are at work during the day, and in the workplace there is still more that needs to be done to make sure that the environment is a safe one, as I had indicated, psychologically and also physically for women. Part of our commitment and support, what we have done this year already, as part of our support of the combating gender-based violence initiatives that the President has set up, has been to participate as an industry in the fundraising that was set up earlier on in February, the Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Fund that will help with programs across society and also within business to ensure that there is enough funding to support the NGOs that work in the sector, but also to support programs practically to make sure that the safety of women and the gender-based violence prevention programs not only take place within organizations, but also cover the community. And also we work in partnership with different government departments like the Department of Justice.
The foundational measure leads, they have proposed training for our members, our employees, on the unconscious biases that they may have, so that they uncover those. And it's only when you uncover your unconscious biases actually that you are able then to address them, so that men are aware of the biases they have against having women in the industry, and they are therefore assisted in doing that, in overcoming those biases. So we believe that that's quite important because it is at a subconscious level that you actually have these biases.
From a long-term objectives, for me, there are two big opportunities that I see for us to make sure that we can say we are making progress in terms of prevention and combating gender-based violence. Firstly, is to make sure that all leaders, male and female in the industry, actually put the gender agenda front and center in terms of their own operations, so that the speed of execution and us getting to a point where we create safe spaces happens quite fast, rather than when it's not fully embraced by the leaders in organization. And that's the first part. The second one is to make sure that as we continue to deal with the challenges that are faced by women and men in the world of work, we have enough policies that have got teeth in the organizations, and those policies which would make sure that they support employees when they come up with cases that they are facing against themselves or from their side, whether it's around bullying, harassment, or victimization. And these cases should be supported through independent investigations rather than the normal type of investigations that we normally see happen through like an HR process, but to be independent and supportive of the complainant. Because by doing that, we will be encouraging more and more people to come up and also to feel safe that they can talk openly about the challenges that they face, because we can only fix things that we know about. And if we don't understand what we are dealing with, it will be difficult to fix those challenges and be able to move forward.